Hi, everybody, and welcome to Create Your Best Life with Rex. I am your host, Rex Sykes. It's good to be here again. It's a great new show with a great new guest. We're here every Wednesday at this same time live, and then the replay is available on my YouTube channel, Create Your Best Life with Rex YouTube, and that will scroll later on. By the way, the chat room is open, and if you're somewhere where you can leave comments or ask questions, we invite you to do that. If they show up in my chat room, they will come up on the platform so that you can ask questions or leave comments regarding my guest or the topic. So I invite you to do that, and I also invite you to share the show. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like buttons, those kinds of things. Do all of that stuff. I'll tell you right up front, and we'll go from there. I'm very excited about the show today. I have on an actress, filmmaker, activist, the president of Heroica Films, Kamala Lopez. And Kamala launched the movement and documentary film Equal Means Equal to educate Americans about the importance of the Equal Rights Amendment under federal law for women and complete the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Equal Means Equal was released in the summer of 2016, and it went on to win Best U.S. Documentary, the Audience Award at Michael Moore's TCF Festival, and was a New York Times Critics' Pick. The film began to be used by activists across the country in community screenings, house parties, and online to reinvigorate the fight to complete ERA ratification. And Kamala founded Equal Means Equal as a national nonprofit civil rights movement. And then in March of 2017, after over 35 years of inaction, the Equal Rights Amendment was ratified in Nevada and Illinois on May 30th of 2018, where Lopez testified at the hearings for the House of Delegates. In 2019, she moved her base of operations to Virginia to focus on removing anti-ERA legislators who were blocking the amendment from being voted on. Equal Means Equal helped flip 8 seats across the state, get the first black man, Clint Jenkins, elected to Suffolk County, and saw the first woman in the 400-year history of Virginia's legislature elected as Speaker of the House. Finally, after the promised first vote by the new legislation, the ERA became the 38th and final state needed to complete the process on January 27, 2020. Now, 2 years later, the ERA became the 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Now, despite the validity of the ERA, its publication and adoption has been blocked by the U.S. government, first by the Trump administration, and then subsequently by the Biden administration. And Equal Means Equal joined by over 80 organizations who signed on as an Amici filed suit, unsuccessfully, to compel the U.S. archivist to publish ERA and have continued years-long protest and pressure campaign. I don't know if you understand all that. I'm not sure that I do, but we'll talk about it with Kamala in just a moment. In 23, she launched a Final Impact campaign for the ERA, leveraging large-scale public arts projects across the country to draw public attention to the failure of the administration to publish a duly ratified congressional amendment. And she works in Washington, D.C. with advocates to ensure that the ERA is properly adopted and enforced. She's a Yale graduate in philosophy and theater studies. She was born in New York City to an Indian mother and a Venezuelan father, and she's worked as an actor in over 30 feature films. We'll talk about those too. She's also in over 60 TV shows. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Kamala up and we can say hello. You get to meet her. Hi, Kamala. How are you?
Hi, Rex. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm looking forward to our conversation, especially some of what I just read, because that may or may not be clear to all of the people. But let's talk and oh, look at that. Jenny Sykes Kamala is amazing, and of course you are. And Kamala is a great actor and a powerful activist. And This is true too. So
I see I have my fans. My Ginny is, as you know, a
my sister,
brilliant woman, and your sister. And that's how I know you, is that Ginny co-wrote the film Equal Means Equal with me. And she's been one of my closest friends ever since I met her. She is just an astonishing, quirky, peculiar, and wonderful person. And Joel Marshall, who you had on your show recently, is my husband, and he hosts his own very popular podcast called Lunch Therapy. And so, yes, I'm honored to have both of my dear closest friends watching.
well, and I got to state that you and Joel are very important in Ginny's life and my life, and so we thank you and appreciate that, and appreciate you both. You know, Joel was here recently with the Lunch Therapy show, and I've been on his show as well, and now you're here. We did just so historically. You and Ginny and I believe Joel and I all did a show a couple years back, or 2 or 3 years ago, that I did for the LA Tribune, and we talked about different things. But so let's go to the Equal Means Equal. You co-wrote that with Ginny and co-produced it with Ginny, and then Joel also produced it. And then additionally, the actor Patricia Arquette was an executive producer on it, and your mom Liz was
Yes.
an executive producer on it. But how did it come to you to pursue this important topic and then make a film about it, and then your whole life changed? I mean, you're an advocate, you're an activist, you're traveling, you're speaking, so tell us how it started with you.
Well, it started because I was under the misinformation that I believe 96% of Americans believe that men and women are equal. I was one of those people. I believed that we had all the same rights and protections as men. And I discovered when Joel and I were at the Smithsonian Institute showing our first film, which is called A Single Woman, about the life of first U.S. Congresswoman Jeanette Rankin, who actually was voted into Congress before women had the vote, which I thought was fascinating. My cousin, Jean Marie Simpson, had written a one-woman show about her, and I just found her absolutely compelling as a role model. Instead of, saying, well, women aren't in the government, let's try and find a way to get in using the regular channels. She just said, well, let me get 85,000 men to vote for me. Then I can be the first woman in Congress, and then I can get women the vote, which is exactly what she did. But in any case, we were invited to screen the film at the Smithsonian Institute as part of an exhibit called Women of Our Time. And when we arrived there, I was feeling very high on the hog. I was feeling really very powerful and fancy. And I walked into the lobby of the Smithsonian, and there was a historical reenactress. Her name is Taylor Williams, and she was wearing a suffrage outfit and wandering around the lobby talking to guests. And she came up to me, and I thought, part of my mind was saying, this will be my career one day. I will be haunting the halls of various museums playing historical characters if I can't get a job on TV anymore. And so I said, hello, my dear, who are you and why are you here? And she said, my name is Alice Paul, and I'm back to haunt you because you've done nothing to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment, and women in this country still don't have equal rights to men. And I honestly was completely shocked by that. I didn't really believe it. It took me a couple of months after that moment to look into it and really sort of sit with it and think, wow, that's really effed up. Here I am thinking I'm fancy pantsy director, but I'm not even I'm not even a citizen really on the same level as the other half of the population. I'm second class. And that did not sit well with me. And I decided that there really wasn't much of a choice for me. I just had to do something about it. And at the time, Joel and I had been working with one of my dear friends, George Hickenlooper, who you may know as a director. He passed away, unfortunately, very young. But we were working on a project called Speechless Without Writers. There was a writer's strike going on at the time. And what we were doing is creating short videos using celebrities to prove that an actor without a script is essentially speechless, and that the script was really an important, if not the most important part of the creative process for a film, was a good script. And so we had been going around filming everybody from Woody Allen to Ed Asner to oh gosh, there were so many incredible actors. And that campaign, which was done for no money, basically, you know, I edited a lot of them in my kitchen. We would go around in a little team. Jill Kushner was also part of it. And we would, and Alan Sereboff, we would film the actors, run home and cut it and then put it out. And we put out one short film a day on a new platform called Deadline Hollywood Daily, which at the time was very unknown, but it was kind of like inside and underground, and people would watch. And within 3 months of launching that campaign, the writers' strike ended, and in good part because the studios could not withstand the public pressure of having all these famous actors basically saying, can't you give the writers just a tiny little piece of your profits? It's not like they're asking for so much. You can see one of the pieces that I actually, where I play this Indian lady that's come to give him some advice. I'm like a fortune teller or something. And we talk about how if the studios weren't so greedy and would just give the writers just a tiny little piece, the strike would be over. And it actually worked out that way. Our show was featured in Time Magazine and on the Colbert Show and on the Daily Show, and the studios folded. Now, I thought to myself, well, let's just do the same thing for the Equal Rights Amendment. You have more than half of the population believing that women are equal. Let's just do a short virtual campaign. And so that was the beginning of what ended up being a very, very long, arduous, complicated, and not easy at all process to get to the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment.
And there are still some issues.
Well, the issue is that the government is acting illegally and criminally to withhold the duly ratified amendment. It's never happened before in the history of the United States. 38 states have made their position very clear, and it's being illegally blocked. That would be the only issue from my point of view. There are others that believe that the deadline that was placed in the preamble of the ERA is valid, but everybody and their mother, including the American Bar Association, the American Constitution Society, 46 US senators, hundreds of congresspeople, Lawrence Tribe, I mean, I could go on, have all said that that deadline is invalid, unconstitutional, and illegal and can't be followed.
Well, let's also, it's amazing, but let's also talk about what the ERA amendment is, what it means, because when did women, for example, first get to use credit cards?
Oh, I believe in the mid-70s.
You know, and so I'm a teenager. I'm in my 20s in the 70s, and I'm dating women. I never realized that. I mean, I didn't have a credit card till I was 35 because I didn't want any of them. You know, my mom was like, well, you're traveling all over. You should get a credit card. Prior to that, I never even, you know, I did everything with cash or, you know, paid check. But I never realized that women couldn't have a credit card at the same time that I could have. I learned about this probably from watching Equal Means Equal. I mean, So what is it that it addresses for women and for others that is necessary for us to understand, especially given the climate in 2025?
Well, first of all, when the United States was founded as a republic, women were still property of their husbands, property of their fathers first. And then when they married, they became the property of their husbands. They were something called chattel. And the legal model for wives was what was used to create the legal model for slaves. So women had no agency, they had no rights except through coverture, through being covered by their husbands or fathers. And in 1920, women got the vote, which I mentioned, Jeanette Rankin was in Congress at that time. She was in Congress from 1917 to 1920, and women got the vote. But the vote was the only right that they have received subsequently. All the other rights and statutes and laws that women avail themselves of today are subservient to the lack of equality federally. So, for instance, women are not paid equally, even though we have an Equal Pay Act, even though we have multiple laws that pretend or purport to address pay inequality. There is still an intransigent gender pay gap. Why is that? Because the underlying law does not provide women with the equal guaranteed protection of our laws. And that is in part because in the 14th Amendment, where it says all persons have equal rights and guarantees of equal protections, women at that point were still not considered persons. We became persons later on, but at that point so the ERA was designed to address the lack of equality for women in the 14th Amendment. So the 14th Amendment gave Black men equality, but it didn't give it to Black women or any women for that matter. So what the ERA does, aside from pay, one of the most important factors of having equal rights and protections guaranteed by the federal government is gendered violence. That's rape, human trafficking, sexual assault, sexual harassment. All of those things fall under gendered violence. And again, when you go to court as a woman, you are not protected equally. And you will not get equal justice, although it's written and blazoned over the Supreme Court, equal justice for all. That's it's not true. There is no equal justice for women without federal equality in the Constitution.
So is the ERA amendment specifically or just for including women, or does it also include others?
It includes all people regardless of sex. So the language of the ERA, which is very simple, very uncontroversial, says equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. So that means that whether you're a man, a woman, or anyone in between, if you classify yourself as other than a man or a woman, you too are protected because sex covers all human beings. So, for instance, there are areas in our society where men feel that they are receiving they're the victims of sexual discrimination based on their gender, which could be in areas of custody, family court. A lot of times, women also are discriminated in that area as well. But there are areas. There was something called tender presumption, I believe is the terminology, which is that the court had this view that between the age of 0 to 2 years old, a child would always be in better hands with the mother. Now, that's just not true. There are some incredible fathers that have very not good, I don't know how to say it diplomatically, but women that should not have little babies, and the court will invariably give them to the mothers, despite all evidence pointing to the father being the better parent. So that's an area. And then, of course, in the case of LGBTQ rights, with the Equal Rights Amendment, you cannot discriminate against someone because they're gay or transgender or anything else. And another very relevant, at least to this moment in history, is the rights to control our own bodies. So the right to bodily autonomy used to be provided to women under the rubric of privacy, which is what Roe versus Wade said. But what the Equal Rights Amendment says is that women have the right to bodily autonomy and control over their own bodies under equality, meaning if you cannot dictate to a man how many children he may have, when he may have them, his fertility, his sexual ability, then you can't do the same to women. I mean, theoretically, in an alternate universe, if you could dictate to a man that he must have a vasectomy, that he may not have a prescription for Viagra, then I suppose you would be able to do the same for women. But since we all know that that ain't never going to happen, so we will achieve, if the ERA is properly adopted, women will receive the right to control their bodies again.
Wow. Well, I just want to say in a separate note to our conversation that if you're watching the show live or in replay, and this is an important issue on your heart, as it is on so many people's hearts and in so many people's lives and how they're being affected, or either held back or whatever, go ahead and share this. Get this out there. Share it to your friends, your family. Make it go viral. Do whatever you can so that the people who might be able to make a difference know that this is on your heart, that this is an important matter and it needs to be addressed and it needs to be fully adopted, ratified, and it needs to be protected so that the people it applies to are protected. I just find it so amazing that in 2025 now we're dealing with these very same issues where the rights and the protections and the freedoms and the liberties and whatever you want to call it are being threatened left and right, and that people, however they want to identify, are smeared and chastised and excluded because of the way they choose to identify. It's a very, I mean, I don't know what adjective to use. It's just very disturbing and very sad that here we are in the year 2025 and we are so backwards when it comes to this.
It really is astonishing how quickly things have regressed. If anybody is watching this, I'd like to highly recommend that you watch the documentary Equal Means Equal. It's on Amazon Prime for free. You can rent it if you don't have Amazon Prime. And it really lays out all of the areas in our society where the ERA is so critical. And one of the things that's really disturbing is that since 2016, well, we started making the movie in around 2012, but it was released in 2016. Some of the things that were even seen as outlandish to suggest at that time have actually come to pass. So we have lost the right to abortion in this country. We are seeing pushback to just women being considered equal. If you look right now, the fight against DEI, which, to explain what it is diversity, equity, and inclusion, meaning that society benefits from a diverse group of people with different opinions and coming from different places. Equity, that society must provide equal opportunities, equal rights, equal protections to people, and inclusion, that we shouldn't exclude people for any reason for whatsoever. The fact that that is seen right now as a dirty word and is being eliminated from government, from corporations, the studios. I just heard that Paramount dropped its DEI programs. The studios are looking at this as an opportunity to just get rid of stuff. And I think a lot of women don't realize that we are part of the DEI push. Even though we are 51% of the population, we are marginalized. We are considered less than. And so when you eliminate DEI, what you're going to see is the number of women in these positions going down. And what we know is that when women are in any space, the UN did a study about this. And even, Hillary Clinton a billion years ago said that, if you achieve 30% participation by women, you see a marked difference in the outcomes, in the corporate culture, in the decrease of violence, in the increase of collaborative problem solving. If you continue to allow men to be the dominant voice in the room in every space in society where decisions are made, you will continue to see decisions made that are heading towards domination, control, war, just sort of more and more inhumane. And one of the things that Jeanette Rankin said that I think is so true is that men and women are like right and left hands. It doesn't make sense not to use both. We complement each other. We bring different strengths to the table and different weaknesses to the table. But when you have a society that's so out of balance, with the power base so heavily weighted in one side, you see the imbalance all around. You see it reflected everywhere you look, and it's highly dangerous.
Well, I certainly agree with that. I also think that I think people travel the world because they want to be exposed to different places and different cultures, and see different art and different dance and different, the way different people live. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we go visit, or vacation in different places. I, as a person, I hate the term like-minded people, because I don't want to be in a room of like-minded people if they're all that is like-mindedness, because I don't need more of people who are like me. I want to be challenged by people who are different than me. I want to be able to get outside of the blind spots that I can't see that somebody else might be. I like having an enriched arena of a variety of people with different beliefs and thoughts and practices and colors and shapes and sizes and genders and the whole thing. And sadly, I think social media has done a huge, and the rise of the internet and marketing has done a huge disservice to us, because they've made everything a la carte to splinter groups, so that you can see only what you want to see, and I can see only what I want to see. And then we lose touch with everybody around us, because at least when we had network television or cable kind of thing, we had the opportunity to all tune in on a Monday night at 8 p.m. and see the same show, depending on what network we were on. And then we could talk about it throughout the week, because we're all exposed to it. Now, there's so many different channels, so many different things we may never even meet, or see. I mean, in the film business, there are plenty of people who I've never heard of them. I don't know their shows. I can't keep track of it, because they're now being split up. And on the one hand, that's fantastic. In other words, more product is being done, more opportunities being done. But it's also limiting us in that we're no longer. America was the melting pot, and what they're trying to do is keep it from being a melting pot. I'll make this statement too. If it takes a man and a woman to make a baby, you would think it should take a man and a woman to raise a baby. And I don't have problems with gay parents being parents. I mean, me personally. But what I'm saying is, the roles of both are so intertwined, in life giving and life promotion, and even at end stage of life and things like that. For it not to be that way in education and business and in all areas of our life, it's egregious. It's mind-boggling that we are where we are, and we're dealing with the issues that we're dealing with, and the ability to try and exclude people or take their rights or privileges away. I mean, just the equal pay thing. I mean, it's crazy. But so let me go back a second though, because I do want to address something. Mac Valentine asked you a question earlier while you were talking, and that was, he's grateful for that. But he said, "Why do women take the man's name?" And was that a property thing just from the past?
Yeah, that's a remnant of the past. I did not take my husband's name. Lucy Stone famously did not take her husband's name. I think it is a relic of the coverture laws, meaning that once you're married, you're covered, you're protected by the rights and privileges of the man. I think in the Middle East, there's still that sort of thing where the woman, her entire identity is subsumed by that of her husband. She is sort of lost in the wilderness without the protection. She can't even go outside without being walked around with a male companion.
I will admit that occasionally I slipped up on this, but I refuse to call my wife my wife. I never liked the term because it felt possessive, and I didn't feel like I'd say this is so and so, or yes, we're married or something like that. But to introduce somebody as my wife or my husband always seems like I have to make a point of this. I mean, we're both humans, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't get it.
I think what we need to talk about right now is how most people feel the way we do, which is that we want people to be included. We want people to be able to enjoy their lives. But what we're seeing more and more is a withholding of that ability, including, and I'll mention, when I was in Washington, D.C. recently, I stayed there for about a month to try and see if we could get President Biden to publish the Equal Rights Amendment before he left office. Now, everybody had asked him to do this. It was a very simple 3-minute phone call to the U.S. archivist, who was his employee, to tell her to simply publish the amendment, as is required by her job. Article 5 of the Constitution is very clear. It says, upon ratification of 3/4 of the states, an amendment shall be adopted. It doesn't say if you feel like it. It doesn't say anything except shall be adopted. And she didn't do it, and he didn't do it. And so Equal Means Equal was compelled to take some very drastic action. We actually, I don't know if you knew this, but we held a protest where we took down the banners outside of the National Archives, and we replaced them with our own banners that said, Biden published the ERA, hero or zero, at which point 30 people were detained and 6 of us were arrested. 7 of us were arrested, but 6 were arrested on charges of felony theft and trespassing. Now, you can't actually trespass on a public monument, and you cannot also be charged with thievery when the very same banner was put up within an hour. What we're seeing right now in the country is an attack on our right to protest, an attempt to intimidate the public from being able to take a stand. And that is really dangerous, because it's one thing for you not to agree, but it's another thing to shut down. That is so un-American, to say you can't express your point of view. You will be quiet. You will accept this illegal blockade of your human rights. The United Nations just stated that the U.S. is violating the human and civil rights of half of the population by failing to adopt the ERA. But what can we do about it, right? If we can't protest without being arrested, if our representatives are so meek and lily-livered that they are unable, they should all be getting arrested. The entire Democratic Party should be sitting in jail right now instead of, I don't know what they're up to, but it just, the system is so broken. And I know it sounds like what everybody's saying, the system is broken. But if we can't count on our own representatives to represent us, if the population of 38 states have stated that we want women equal and the government says no, what is left to do? I mean, what do we do now? And I think, I mean, I have ideas, but they're all kind of crazy.
Well, I want to entertain some of those, Brett. You know, I want to say a couple of things. One is old habits die hard. And what we see are, you know, a bunch of old, probably predominantly white men, but not just white men, you know, who are trying to hang on to their power. They're afraid that they're losing, you know, the edge. They don't want to give anything to anybody for any reason. So they're willing to, you know, thwart and to hold back and to push down, you know, anyone. You know, and the interesting thing is the majority has always done that to the minorities. You know, when the minority is oppressed, let's say there's 100 people and they oppress 10 people. Those 10 people, in order to make an impact on the 100, get noisier. They, hey, wait a second, they yell or they protest or they do something. And then those 90 go, well, look at those people. All they do is cause trouble, and they do it. So it's just like everything is stacked against the minorities. It's stacked against the people who aren't in power, because the power people hold power, don't want to give up the power, don't want to share the power, don't want to, you know, invite anyone else into the club. And I think a lot of it's profit driven, but I think also a lot of it is rooted in, you know, just some of our bizarre religious and political and the human beliefs and values that you know that we've been raised with in society, and the messages. You know, one of the greatest things that scare me more than anything is the illusion of freedom that we have in the country, the freedom of speech. So I can go stand on this corner and I can yell at people, except that's getting questioned now. But I could protest and nothing could be done about it. You know, in other words, no matter how much noise I make in a legal sense, nothing will be done. And then if somebody does do something criminal or untoward or what shouldn't be done, then that just hurts everyone. So it you know, it is very difficult to get your position the right kind of attention, the positive kind of attention that it's needed to, and have that voice and that access to all, because, you know, if you're shut out by media, or you're shut out by politicians. And lastly, I'll say this. There's not a person in Washington, D.C., the administration, Congress, Senate, or the judiciary that's a leader. We don't elect leaders like we don't elect kings. We elect representatives. A judge is a representative of the people or of the law or the constitution of the land. The president is supposed to represent the people. He's only a commander-in-chief when it comes to the military, not a commander-in-chief over you or me. He's a representative, and it's supposed to be, all of these people are supposed to be doing the will of the people. That's what a democratic republic is all about, was that majority rule. If the majority is corrupted, you know, or insane, then you have a huge problem, because if majority rules and the majority isn't, that's why you had checks and balances in government, was to try to prevent the abuses that would happen, whether it was a majority or in Congress or in the White House or the judiciary or in the Senate, that there are checks. And what's happening now is that everything seems to be stripped away, falling apart, and this agenda is pushed to say, this is what we're going to do. You don't have a say in it. Here's what we're doing, because we're the leaders. We're the people in power. We're the ones you voted for, as opposed to saying, how can we better serve you?
Absolutely right.
And protect your rights and your privileges and those assigned to you by your society, your country, the living within the laws. I mean, on the side of the LAPD cars, it says to protect and serve. Well, that's what the Constitution was to do. That's what our politicians and our representatives are supposed to do, is to protect and to serve us. And look at the damage and the harm and how long it has been just trying to get women to have equal access to the same thing that men have traditionally had forever.
Absolutely right.
You're not asking for power to put them down, or you're just saying, can we get paid the same? Can we have the same rights and privileges? I mean, it's truly amazing.
My concern is that when you start to, and very few of the people in our government seem to be aware of either civics or history enough to recognize that if you continue to beat down the population, if you starve them, if you take away their rights, if you make life more and more miserable for them, you're really signing your own death warrant, because people are going to get to a point. I mean, I was in the grocery store yesterday, and first of all, there were no eggs, but there was like a few cartons of eggs, and they were $10 a carton. Now, I understand if you're Elon Musk, $10 a carton has absolutely no effect on you. But for the majority of people in this country, they cannot afford to be paying $10 for a dozen eggs and $5.89 for a gallon of gas and $3,000 to live in a 2-bedroom apartment. It's just not tenable. And what happens when you push 100 million, 200 million people? You take away their health care, you take away their Social Security, you put them back in the poorhouse. What do you think? First of all, who's going to buy your products? How many Teslas can billionaires buy? I mean, don't you need to sell your cars to the general population? If the general population has been fired, is not receiving health care and no longer receiving Social Security, who's going to buy your products? And what do you think is going to happen to the majority of the people? This is what happened in France. This is what happens in South America and all of these places, even in India under the British rule. If you are cruel to the vast majority of the population, they will turn on you. Is that what you want?
Sadly, that may be what they want.
Why?
Thin the herd.
So this is why women are the solution, right? Yeah. And Mahatma Gandhi said, women are the dharma of the human species. Until women are in a position of power, this mentality of culling the herd, of, let me see how much I can get at your expense, let me take, will continue. And I'm trying to be not being very gendered about the way I philosophically look at this, but it would be ridiculous of me not to suggest that women bring different skill set to the table. Okay, so women bring a more collaborative outlook, a more diplomatic, a more holistic, a more empathic, a more compassionate, a more power sharing versus power over. And if you want to see a world where you are not being crushed, you need to give women power, because we are not interested in having all the power. As parents, as mothers, as people that have to contend with all of these little people, we understand about power sharing, about delegation, about, okay, you do this and I'll do that. And if getting from point A to point B is going to run over people, maybe I'll take a longer route around it. The matriarchies were a very unviolent period of human history. The matriarchies were a very collaborative power sharing type of model. And, I would say bring back the matriarchy, but that may be the masculine energy in me coming out saying, you know what, we need to take over because you guys are really not doing the job for all of us. But that said, set that aside. I think if we could just get women to 40% participation, forget 51%, which is what we actually are. But if we can just bring it up from 2% or 5% or 12%, which is, if you watch the documentary, you will see women have absolutely no power in any area of society up to a level of even 20%. If you can get us to 40%, you will have a happier life. Everyone will enjoy things more. The animals, the children, the environment, everything will improve when women are given more power. And that's why I'm focused on the Equal Rights Amendment, because that is just the very, very first step of heading in that direction, which is a direction to save the human race and to save this beautiful planet that is the only planet that we have, Mars notwithstanding. If Elon Musk and his tech bros, his muskrats want to go to Mars, please take the first rocket and get the F out of here. But I'd like to work on planet Earth, which is a beautiful place. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, we're going to almost be out of time, and we didn't get to talk about acting or films or any of that other stuff, and rightly so. No worries. I'd like to have you back. I'd like to have Joel and Ginny back, and we'll do, a group show together, or singular as well, because this is an important issue. I do think, though, however, that it does need to be said that just as there are stupid men and smart men, there are stupid women and smart women.
No doubt.
If you look at what's going on in Congress or the Senate, you got some really stupid women.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But on the other hand, you've got some really brilliant, wonderful, incredible women. And here's why I think they're reluctant is they sometimes make men look really, really stupid because they're so smart, or they know how to argue. They know how to, and I don't know that men are willing to say, let's have women in power, because it terrifies them. I mean, it terrifies men, their ego. It threatens everything about them. People have been debating for, I don't know how many years about who the breadwinner is. Could a woman make more money than a man and still have a successful marriage or not? All these kind of weird things that, and for me, it's like, we have to resolve basic human stuff. We have to say, look, we're all one species. We've got a female part and a male part, and they can't exist without each other. We wouldn't be here without each other. And we need to find a way to collaborate and cooperate. I firmly believe that if women were the primary people in government with fewer men, we'd be far better off. And I say that because I've lived having many mentors and coaches and guides and trainers and educators who are women, even more so than men. And I like the men that I've had, but the women have been outstanding. I was fortunate to spend a day in a grade school this past week or last week. And I spent from like 7:30 till like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was so impressed with the level of care, the level of dedication, the level of friendly. Everyone was friendly. Everyone was thoughtful. I went about every half hour. I went to a different classroom to see what was going on, and I was just blown away. I'm like, nobody is paying these people what they deserve to be paid. They should be paid a fortune because they're taking care of the children who will be the future of our country. And people don't think of it that way. They go, cut this, cut that, cut school lunches, get the women out of here, get the. So we're in this slash and burn crazy time where things could be done much, much differently, and they aren't. And I do think that women represent an amazing, not that they are, but that men are terrified of women having power. And that might be one of the reasons why. And so if men ever grew up enough to go, I could share my power with a woman, or I could share my power with a man, it may be a long time before we evolve that far.
I think you're absolutely right. I do want to just clarify that I absolutely love men, and there are so many good men in the world, and ever increasing amounts of, I would say, very conscious men, men that don't see things like, oh, I'm a man, therefore I will do this, I'll be this, so I just I just pray that we will become a kinder society, that we will recognize that we all are human beings and we all deserve the right to live a life with as little pain as possible. And I don't think that it's about men or women per se. I just think that they've found a way to glump all of these certain characteristics and label them female, and these others and label them male. And there are a lot of women that have sort of bought into the male power ideology, and so they behave as men. And I don't think that those women, are very fantabulous either. Um,
Well, one thing, I don't mean to interrupt your thought, but one thing is certainly true, and that is a lot of people vote against their own best interests. A lot of people don't know what their own best interests are, and if you can't see what your blind spots are, you don't know where the harm is coming from. So there are a lot of women who don't support women, and as there are men. I mean, but I'm just it's the issues are so much larger than we've got time to continue, to go on with. But I would like to come back and visit this because I do think it's truly, truly important, and that I love genius, whether it's a man or a woman. I love quality in art, whether it's a man or a woman. I love quality in friends, whether they're men or women. It doesn't, you know what I'm saying? I mean, in other words, there's so many things that distract us from what is truly important. Neil deGrasse Tyson said something, and I don't always agree with the guy, and things like that, but he said something I thought was really amazing, and it will show where somebody who's got wisdom and has been around the block a while has thought things out. Said, Elon Musk wants to colonize Mars and take everybody up there. He said, do you understand that the problems of going to Mars and the difference in size and the gravity and how heavy it would be for us, and the fact that we'd have to live inside these, domed kind of, environments. He said, if you could do all of that to sustain life on the planet, he said, you should be able to figure out a way to knock an asteroid out of the sky without us having to colonize Mars. In other words, why not fix the planet Earth and spend our time going, well, let's make sure we aren't, destroyed like the dinosaurs were, and remain here where we've already got access to everything and we could do it. So and I love that because it shows somebody who's going, really, you think this is the thing you want to spend all your money, time, and energy in doing, is try and escape one planet and go to another planet and create the same kind of problems there? And so we need wise thinkers like you and like Joel and Ginny and other people who are forward thinkers and who are leading the charge to try and bring some conscious civility and some conscious wisdom and experience to this discussion, so that all people are treated equally, and so that all people have access to the right to liberty, life, and happiness, and the pursuit of their. Well, we do need a government that supports the citizenry, not tramples the citizenry. Right or left side. I mean, I'm just, we need a compassionate, benevolent government that is there to serve the people and not to dictate to what the people should do because they happen to have the power. They got all the marbles, so they get to make all the laws.
Absolutely.
So we're out of time. I don't want to leave on a dour note. So let's come back. Will you come back and revisit this, because there, and we can talk more about one. I want to talk about your films and the careers and things like that, but also about the kinds of things that we can do, and that what you are doing to continue this important mission, and to see that it happens peacefully and legally, and that these things come to pass.
Certainly. And I'd like to ask everybody that is watching the show to go to equalmeansequal.org and join. And it doesn't cost a thing. You just put in your name and your email address, and you will be on our mailing list. And that way you'll be aware of any actions we're planning. We're going to be hosting a webinar shortly to discuss some court cases that are coming down the pike. You know, we often file cases against the U.S. government or against or speak up in a lawsuit where we feel our voices need to be heard. So we'd love to have you as part of our membership, and hope to see you join equalmeansequal.org.
Absolutely. And again, go share out this show, let it go viral, make it go viral, like it, subscribe, you know, when you see it on YouTube or wherever, but go ahead and share this so that other people know what we are all dealing with and what's been going on historically and what the difference might be for all of us in the near future. Kamala, I thank you so much for being here. Much love to you and to Joel. We'll have you back again. I hope sooner rather than later when time permits for you, and we'll continue the discussion because it is truly an important discussion. And thank you. All right, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here. Let me tell you about something that I need you to know about, and I'm so very glad that you've been here for the show. If you're watching in replay again, please share it and please comment, and let's make our voices known. So let me ask you a question, and it's completely changing gears. Would you like to discover the secret to living life on your terms, to experience wealth beyond anything that you might have imagined, success and influence? So are you an achiever who's devoured books like Think and Grow Rich, or The 4-Hour Work Week, Becoming Supernatural, Awaken the Giant Within? Have you applied every tool and technique and still feel there's something missing, a gap between the life you have now and the life you know you're meant to live? My book, Life on Your Terms, is the missing piece you've been looking for. And I mean that like I mean seriously. It's so seriously. Unlike other guides that teach you what you should do or how to work harder, Life on Your Terms reveals why true fulfillment comes not just from success, but from aligning your mind, your energy, and actions with your own highest vision. This is not about grinding harder. It's not about making another list or waiting for a breakthrough. It is about creating a life you genuinely love living. And it's rich both in achievement and in purpose. So here's how Life on Your Terms stands apart. There's an unbreakable blueprint for fulfillment. The methods in this book are simple, yet they're profound, and they're designed to help you feel truly wealthy, truly happy, and connected, and not just act like it. No fake it till you make it stuff. It's mastery over your inner and outer world, combining ancient wisdom with cutting-edge neuroscience. This book gives you direct practices to reprogram your mind and break free from limiting beliefs without years of trial and error. It's sustainable transformation, not short-lived motivation. Unlike self-help pump-ups that fade, Life on Your Terms empowers you to align your mind with a natural abundance, with a natural flow of abundance, making success and happiness inevitable, not conditional. So this is more than a self-improvement book. It's a guide to crafting a life that only you can design with clarity, fulfillment, and freedom. And if you're ready to live a life of purpose, wealth, and lasting joy, Life on Your Terms is your key. So don't wait. Start creating a life you don't need to escape from. Live life on your terms. And if you're seeing the scroll below me, the crawl, then that's how you get the book. But go there right now, rexsikes.com/book, and it'll give you some instructions so that when you get the book, I will gift you a bonus worth $497 on mastery. It's an online video training on how to master your thoughts, your feelings, your words, your actions, so that you can get the kind of results that you want to get to live life on your terms. And if you do that and you get the book from Amazon, you'll get the training even before you get the book. And I know you're going to love both. So go do that now. And I appreciate you for being there or for being here. And I appreciate those of you who are watching. Again, go share the show, go get your book, and be sure to tune in next week when I have another exciting guest, and then watch for Kamala to come back, and we'll go from there. So thank you so much for being here. Remember, I always say, if you consider something a problem, it's a problem. If you consider something a blessing, it is a blessing. So how you think about things matters. And that's why I encourage you to celebrate everything. And with that, I'm Rex Sykes. You've been watching Create Your Best Life with Rex, Kamala Lopez, on the ERA amendment and the need to make sure that all people, and especially women, all people are treated equally and fairly. And with that, I'll see you next time.